Okay, Madina.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our Saturday lecture for 20 and 22. Thank you for being here. So the Saturday lectures are brought to you by the Social Sciences Lab, nonprofit initiative that aims to support research, training, and networking among social sciences researchers in the MENA region. We are affiliated to Fatima Al-Fikri Open University, a nonprofit online international university which believes that education should have not no borders. Quality and quality education should be accessible by youth around the world, especially those from developing countries. So our Saturday lectures are open access lectures aimed at providing our students and members of public with an understanding of social issues relating to the Middle East and North Africa region. The first iteration of the Saturday lectures took place from March to September last year, and we are into our second iteration. We have here with us our guest speaker for today, Dr. Rizk. Uh, Dr. Rizk is currently head of modeling and social protection unit at Egypt's Ministry of Planning and Economic Development. Previously, she was an associate professor at the Universities of Canada and at the British University in Egypt. Her research examines the issues in development, economics, then primarily labor, entrepreneurship, education, health, inequality in the MENA region. So entrepreneurship has been promoted by the governments and international agencies as a solution to high rates of youth unemployment, not only in Egypt, but in the Middle East and North Africa. But does it deliver? Today, Dr. Rizk will address this question with the topic entrepreneurship dynamics in Egypt over the past 20 years. So, Dr. Rizk, thank you for being here today. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Medina, and thank you for the Social Science Lab, and welcome and good afternoon. Welcome to the attendees today, the audience of the session, and good afternoon, everyone, and wish this session to be fruitful. I'm going to start to share my screen. Do you see my screen?
Yes.
Thank you very much. The topic, as Medina just mentioned in her sweet introduction, is about trends and patterns of entrepreneurship in Egypt. What I'm going to walk you through a lot of things today, pre-COVID and the post-COVID, and I'm going to start with what happens to the share of household with enterprises over time, and what are the characteristics of the enterprise owners, and what are the characteristics of enterprises itself from 1998 to 2018 pre-COVID, and then we will jump in to the COVID policy responses by the government of Egypt to mitigate the impact of the pandemic on the micro, small, medium enterprises. And there are some research that has been conducted by data that has been released recently on Egyptian firms to assess the impact of COVID and small, medium, on small, medium, and micro enterprises. I think we have like a very rich plate pre and post-COVID, and looking forward for your questions once we are done. Let's start by defining what is entrepreneurship. Usually, entrepreneurship as an idea is associated with innovation, creating values and growth in the market. When we dig more into the literature, we find that when they define entrepreneurship, this is typically centered around three levels. Either using individual data. When they use the individual data in the papers, they mean they define entrepreneurs as either self-employed or employer, business ownership. And sometimes when the papers or the literature use firm level data, so they define the entrepreneur in terms of new firm or startup rates. So this is what I want you to distinguish between. There is sometimes entrepreneurship, it's employer, self-employed, it's individual level data, and the other stream is using firm level data in terms of the new startups rates. And what is really very important to highlight and emphasize, particularly in the MENA region, and what type of entrepreneurship we are talking about. So there is an opportunity entrepreneurship. When we define the entrepreneurship as an opportunity, or we tackle the angle of opportunity, the angle of the opportunity dimension, it means that we are creating jobs, creating values in the market, promoting growth. When we refer to entrepreneurship with a necessity dimension, which is the common in the MENA region, is for those who have no other option in the labor market rather than to be self-employed or to start a business. And this is the culture that is known about entrepreneurship in the MENA region. So the necessity entrepreneurship here is unlikely to be very productive for the economy or to provide good jobs for the new entrants to the labor market or the people who are struggling to transition from the school to work. Self-employment activities can still play a very important role in reducing the severity of poverty, particularly in developing countries. But this is really very important, because when we talk about most of the entrepreneurship papers, they're in the MENA region and the developing countries, they are talking about the necessity option. So due to the rigidity in the labor market for the new entrants and for the youth, they find no option rather than being an entrepreneur. So it's out of necessity. It's out of no options in the labor markets. When we talk about the Egyptian labor market specifically or in particularly, we find that since 1990, since the 2000, it's really very rigid, because the size of the public sector is almost the same. So, they are not absorbing more entrants to the labor to the public sector. However, at the same time, the growth in the private sector is really very minimal. Cannot able to absorb the new entrants every year. So the only option here is the informal sector, or what we know by being an entrepreneur or starting a very micro, small enterprise. So this is what we want to tackle later today in our session. The data that we're going to use for this analysis is the Egyptian labor market panel survey, and we used the 4 waves that we have already: 98, 2006, 2012, and 2018. The Egyptian labor market panel survey, it's a publicly available at the ERF, of the Economic Research Forum portal. It's a national representative panel survey data that has detailed module on agriculture and non-agricultural enterprises. In our analysis, we're going to focus on non-agricultural enterprises. The module that we use has rich information on different topics, such as formality, access to finance, economic activity, location, number of workers, capital ownership. So it's really very rich data sets. Well, I urge you guys to go to the ERF and to subscribe and to have a look on this data. What is really good about this labor market panel survey, it's not only for Egypt, but we have for Tunisia, Jordan, different waves. Now they're working on Sudan as well, in order to see how the labor market in MENA region looks like. So we're going to start with answering our first question: what happens to the share of households with enterprises over time? As I just mentioned, now that we're going to focus on non-agricultural enterprises, because the agricultural enterprises, particularly in the MENA countries or specifically in Egypt, it's informal sector. However, the non-agricultural household enterprises can capture the phenomena of entrepreneurship in Egypt over time. So as you have seen now, this is the percentage of households with non-agricultural enterprises by the head, sex, and wave. So we have, as you see, 4 waves. If we look to the total part, we see that the share of households with enterprises slightly increased over the period between 1998 to 2012, and then it starts to decline sharply in 2018. And if we compare between male households, male-headed households and female-headed households, we can see that female-headed households are less likely to have enterprises compared to male-headed households. Looking to the percentage of households with non-agricultural enterprises by the head, sex, and age group, what we actually observe here that households with prime age heads aged from 30 to 49 years old are likely to have enterprises compared to the youth less than 30. And compared to the, I think here we can say that the prime aged and the older, they are more likely to have enterprises more than the youth. And here actually we can highlight and refer to one of the points that is really very important and common in the MENA region labor market, specifically Egypt, that entrepreneurship is not as it is always mentioned, a solution for unemployment among the youth in Egypt, as we know that the unemployment in Egypt is high prevalent. It's highly prevalent among youth and college graduates. So we do have like a bunch of active labor market policies and entrepreneurship programs that target the youth to be an entrepreneur. However, what we see from this national representative data about Egypt, that they are less likely to have enterprises. Household with enterprises by wealth quintile. So we're going to see now by wealth quintile how the things look like. If we have a look on the total among the poorest, which is the lowest, and the highest wealth quintile in 2018, we can see it. What is really prevalent that 11% of the poorest household had enterprises in 2018, compared to 16% of the richest quintile had enterprises. And this is really hold for male-headed households compared to female-headed households. What we want to refer here, that entrepreneurship in Egypt is common among the wealthier households. So those people who has capital formation. So now we can say that entrepreneurship is common among wealthier households and older or people with work experience, not the youth or the poorest. The second thing that we want to talk about, what are the characteristics of non-agricultural enterprise owners, so the owners of those firms, how they look like. What about their education? What about their age? And what about their familial backgrounds? Does their father or mother education or employment status affect does it affect them, or does it have an impact on their choice of being an entrepreneur or having an enterprise or not? This is what we will answer in this section. have a look here. This is the percentage of individuals who are enterprise owners by sex and wave. What happens from 1998 to 2018 is the rate of enterprise ownership was stable since 1998 till 2012. And then it starts to decline from 2012 to 2018 by almost 2%, nearly 2 percentage points. Women were less likely to be enterprise owners compared to men. So it's more common among men to be enterprise owners in Egypt compared to women. If we see the percentage of individuals who are enterprise owners by education, we have like a very interesting results and striking at the same time. So what we see is if we have a look on the female owners, we see that less educated women in 2018, 4% of the illiterate are more likely of the illiterate women are more likely to own enterprises compared to 1% with a university degree. So less educated women are more likely to own enterprise compared to those with university degree or above or the more educated. And if we see the same, if we look to the male pattern, we're going to see that the vice versa occurs. 8% or the less educated men are less likely to own enterprises more than the more educated. 11% of the men who are enterprise owners with university degree in 2018 is compared to 8% with no education. Men with no education can own enterprises in Egypt. This gives you like again another reflection here, which is illiteracy or illiterate women are more likely to own enterprise compared to the university degree. So she doesn't have another option rather than being an entrepreneur. If we look to the percentage of individuals who are enterprise owners by age group, sorry for this, it's age group, and have a look on the total here. 30, we have like 3 groups, 30 years old or less, the prime aged between 30 and 49, and 50 plus. What we see is those aged 30 to 49 or 50 plus are more likely to be enterprise owners compared to those with 30 years old or less. So entrepreneurship is prevalent or is common among those older people with work experience. They can easily enter this market. And if we compare between male and female owners, we can see that this is really hold for male. It is still hold, the pattern is the same for men and women. For those who are 30 and 49 and 50 plus, male owners are really high compared to the 30 years old or less. And for the female owners, it's the same pattern has hold. With the male, it's dominant among male compared to female. This is really very interesting, again, to have this classification again, or disaggregation again by the father's education. So now we're gonna look to the familial background from where the enterprise owners comes from. And does this affect his choice to be an entrepreneur or not? This is really here interesting to see that the percentage, especially when we look about the disaggregation by the sex of the enterprise owner, male and female, the percentage of men who were enterprise owners was higher among those with less educated fathers. And the same pattern was hold for women as well. So owners who have less educated fathers are more likely to be on entrepreneur. This is whole for male owners and female owners as well. We do the same disaggregation, but by father employment. And overall, we can see that those whose fathers were employers or self-employed are more likely to own enterprises. And this is really very obvious and for male and female as well. So this is really, and here we want to raise this another reflection that the familial background where the enterprise owners comes from has really very huge influence on his decision to enter the labor market as an entrepreneur. Those who are more likely, those was the enterprise owners, either male or female, whose fathers are less educated or employers or self-employed, are more likely to own enterprises. Coming to the third point here, which is the characteristics of enterprises. The economic activity of such kind of enterprises, when we disaggregate it by the sex of the owner, and now we classify or we group the economic activities into 6 groups: manufacturing and related trades, wholesale and retail, accommodation and food service, construction, transportation and storage, others. So what is really very obvious here, that for women-owned enterprises, it is uncommon to have them in the construction field or in the transportation and storage field. So the construction and transportation sectors are less common among are less common to have female-owned enterprises. But if we go for the manufacturing, for example, we're gonna see that the share of men-owned enterprises between 1998 to 2018 is decreasing. The same is for women, however, it's more dominant. Sorry for this. It's decreasing for both male and female over time to have to own enterprises and enterprise in manufacturing and related trades. Coming to the construction, as I've just mentioned, if we go for the female panel, we find it's really very uncommon. That's why it's trimmed, because it's less than 1% already. But however, it's common for male to have an enterprise working on this on the construction sector, and what we see over time, it's decreasing from 2006 to 2018, from 10 to 11 to 6. Interesting to see the wholesale and retail is increasing for male owned enterprises. From 2012, it is 44% to 48%, which is almost 4 percentage points. Compared, it is stable for female-owned enterprises at 74%. Transportation, as we have just mentioned, it's not a common field for female to own an enterprise in this sector. However, for male-owned enterprises, the share, it increases from 2012 to 2018 from 13% to 16%. For the accommodation and food services, the share of male is almost, it's actually, it decreases from 4% to 2012 in 2018. However, The rate is really very small among female owned enterprises. And others here, we combine all the financial services, education, health in this field, and was the education, health, financial services, banking system, all those sectors has been combined and others due to the small amount of data found in this sector when we disaggregate by sex of the owner. But what we need to highlight here that the share of female-owned enterprises between 2012 and 2018, actually from 1998, it's kept increasing on this sectors, which does make sense that that women can actually have like engage more in the sectors like education, health, and banking system. All of this sectors is appealing for women to own an enterprise in such sectors. Coming to the location of enterprise itself, and here actually we do have 7 groups for the location, either this enterprise at home, located at home, shop, office, workshop / factory, mobile worker, street and street vendors, transport based. Those are the 7 most location, the groups of locating those enterprises. If we have a look on female, when it comes to the own home, it is centered. It's common for women to run its enterprise at home. So particularly, we are talking about household enterprises. So what we see, it's stable over time. However, it increased slightly from 2012 to 2018 among female-owned enterprises from 43% to 44%. But however, this pattern is not the same for men. Men less likely to own enterprise, to run their enterprises at home, and the percentage or the share is declining over time since 1998. When it comes to the shop, we're going to find that this is the main concentration of men-owned enterprises. The share of men-owned enterprises running their enterprises in shops, it is 43 1998. It declines from 1998 to 2018. However, the overall pattern is preferable for men to own enterprises in shops. Coming to the office, flat, buildings, rooms, it's less common. Again, it's higher among men. However, it declined from 2012 to 2018, as you see. Workshop and factory, it's almost stable over time. What I want you to have a look at is that the street vendor, sorry for this. I mute myself. Sorry for this. For the transport based, what we see, it's common and it's increasing. The share of men who own enterprises located in transport based located, it's increasing from 1998 to 2006, 3 to 4. The share becomes stable from 2012 to 2018. However, it's uncommon for women to work in a transport-based location. So this is another very important dimension that we want to refer to, which is the percentage of enterprises that were formal. What is really interesting here when we look to the total, that the share of formal owned enterprises is declining from 1998 to 2012. However, there is a 2 percentage points increase from 2012 to 2018. If we look to the closer to the disaggregation by male and female, we see that more the formal enterprises are more common among male owners compared to female owners, and but between 2012 to 2018, the share of female who owned formal enterprises increases from 21% to 25%, which is around 4 percentage point increases over 2012 to 2018, and 3 percentage point increasing for male-owned enterprises. Again, this is another very important dimension. It's considered one of the challenges that facing entrepreneurship and the MENA region, particularly in Egypt, which is the loans, the formal loans. What is really very interesting here, that if we look to the female-owned enterprises, you can see that the share of formal loans for women who owned enterprises has been increased from 2012 to 2018, and this is highlights the initiatives that has been done either by the NGOs or the central bank promoting women's participation in labor market, and providing microfinance for small enterprises in order to small and micro enterprises in order to engage women in the labor market, because as you know, Egypt has one of its lowest participation in labor force among women. It's one of the highest, and most of them are out of labor force. And for men, it's the percentage is almost stable between 2012 and 2018. I'm going to jump here to the outbreak of COVID-19 from 1998 till 2018. We have like an overall look on how things going regarding entrepreneurship, the characteristics of the owners, the characteristics of the firms itself, and now in 2021, I think we need to highlight more and to dig more on what happens to this kind of firms after having look on the characteristics and how it's as we have just mentioned, when we look deeper in the characteristics of the firm owners or the enterprise owners, we see that they are more likely to be illiterate. They are more likely to less likely to have an access to formal loans. However, it's increasing for female, but still it's limited. And to see what happens to these firms due to the outbreak of the COVID-19, and how the government of Egypt works to mitigate the impact of COVID-19 on micro, small, and medium enterprises. Here, actually, I just want to classify the government support into target sectors and that goes directly to the small, medium, and micro enterprises. The stimulus package that has been offered by the government of Egypt is almost 100 billion Egyptian pound, which is around $6.4 million during since the outbreak of the COVID-19. For the specific sectors, the policies that target specific sectors, we do have 50 billion stimulus package that goes for the tourism sector. And there are a bunch of procedures that has been done with respect to the preferential interest rate that has been declined for the hardly hit sectors from 10% to 8%. Reduction in the interest rate for the loans goes for tourism sector, industry sector, agriculture sector, and construction sector. Also, central bank The Central Bank of Egypt, they offer a loan with 2-year grace period to the aviation sector firms. And for the energy sector, they got as well a reduction in the energy prices, particularly for the industrial sector and the aviation sector. And there is an expansion of the export subsidy program for about 3 billion Egyptian pound in the budget 2021 comparison to 2018-2019 in order to promote experts and integration in the global value chain, particularly for the agriculture sector. Finally, the real estate tax relief for both industry and tourism sector. These are the government support policies that goes for specific sectors. For the policies that go directly for the small and medium enterprises, there is a support for small projects, particularly in the industrial sector, because they are hardly hit and most they are more likely to face closure. So there is extension by the central bank launched in 2020 initiatives that goes for tourism sector and the distressed companies with debt below 10 billion have been extended for another 6 months. The share of bank loans portfolio that must be allocated to small medium enterprises has been raised from 20 to 25%. There's another initiative as well to suspend the credit score blacklists for non-regular clients and waiving court cases for default customers. Finally, the micro lenders were advised by the Financial Regulatory Authority to consider delays, but this comes case by case. So in order to make sure that they deserve this delay. Let us have a quick look on what happened, what the impact of the COVID-19 on small medium enterprises in Egypt. This we use another data, which is the ERF MENA Monitor Survey data. It's a phone survey data that has been collected during and after the COVID-19 outbreak in order to assess the impact of the COVID on with a focus on small, medium, and micro enterprises. What we see actually, the tourism-related industries were the most negatively affected with regards to closure, reduced hours, and income losses. Micro enterprises were the most likely to be closed due to COVID-19. If open micro and small enterprises were more likely, if still opened, they are more likely to have reduced hours than the medium firms. So the bigger the firm, the less likely to have reduced hours. Smaller enterprises were more affected by revenue losses than micro and medium enterprises were affected. The most important challenges facing enterprises and entrepreneurship during the outbreak of the COVID is the loss in demand, followed by access to customers due to the mobility restrictions. And this is the bunch of the references where I got my lecture from entrepreneurship in the Middle East, the promise and peril of youth entrepreneurship in the Middle East and North Africa. And I did this paper with Carolyn, and another one talks about the trends and patterns of women entrepreneurship in Egypt, and it's a book chapter published on Oxford University Press. And we do have the paper that is assess the impact of COVID on labor market with a special focus on small, medium, and micro enterprises, and this is published in ERF as well. I think, guys, this is very fruitful references. You can have a look on it in order to have more insights about what happens due to what happens before, pre and post COVID on entrepreneurship and how it looks like in Egypt and in the MENA region, because most of the countries in the MENA region, particularly what where I work on is Tunisia, Jordan. They face the same kind of challenges, and the ecosystem itself it's much similar. I'm gonna stop here and looking forward for your questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Risk, for your precious inputs. So now, after this presentation, we understood that entrepreneurship has a major, like it's quite important for the economy, and also how nowadays the governments, after this COVID-19, is supporting small businesses and medium businesses. So now, we will open the floor for the questions. There are a few of us on Zoom today, and also audience tuning from our Facebook live stream. So, and the first question: what are some explanations for the relationship between own education, father's education, and enterprise ownership?
Okay, Madina, thank you for the question. What the question is about the relation between education and enterprise ownership.
Yeah.
So what we have from the data, that enterprise, the people who are more likely to own enterprises in Egypt are illiterate. If we disaggregate, if we want to dig more on who are the and what are the characteristics of enterprise owner, who is this, who gonna, who are more likely to be entrepreneur, we're gonna we do have like a very important results here. The enterprise illiterate or illiterate owners are more likely to own enterprise. Those who are with no education are more likely to have enterprise in Egypt. And those and if we disaggregate this with male and female, the pattern is really very valid for women. Illiterate women or women with no education are more likely to be owner. And I think the explanation, if we raise the question why, it's because women does not have an access, a huge access to the labor market. So when we are talking about household enterprise, we mean that it's an enterprise that has been indebted in household. So it's more likely women, illiterate women, or women who don't have an access, or maybe she's married woman, she has like commitment to her family and for the household chores, for taking care of her kids and her home. But she more likely to own an enterprise. The location is home, and she is non-educated. So this is really what we gain for youth. The question, I want to refer here to a point or a paper that I've done before about if entrepreneurship can act as a solution for youth unemployment in Egypt or not. What we find not. Like in youth, why not? Because youth are less likely to be entrepreneurs, or less likely, it's not appealing for them to be employer or self-employed. What is appealing in Egypt for youth or the new entrants to the labor market to find a job in a private sector or the public sector with formal contract and non-wage benefits. So if we are talking about the entrepreneur that we are talking about in this data or on our analysis, those who are owning enterprise that has no it's not formal, it's more likely to be informal. So the youth or the younger, this kind of employment status are not appealing to them. What it's for prime aged people and those who are illiterate, that they have no option in front of them in order to spend on their to satisfy the needs of their family and to enter the labor market, they are more likely to own enterprise. I think I hope that I answered the question and gave you the reflection on more on the nature of entrepreneurship in Egypt.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for your answer. And the second question, what about the internet-based entrepreneurship? Do we have any information about that?
Yes, thank you for the question. The question, I really like the internet-based question. We do have, but what makes this common now is the COVID, the prevalence of the COVID-19. The fintech enterprises is not that much common before COVID-19. However, COVID-19 and the closure, the mobility restrictions makes more use. They enter this field. Well, I think here we can refer to the new report that has been published about the GEM, the Global Entrepreneurship Monitor Report 2021, because it gives us like very good insights about what happens due to the COVID on this such kind of let me share you some of the insights on this. So the internet, yes, the internet, the early stage entrepreneurship after the COVID-19 has been doubled, particularly the fintech ones. So it has been 6.7 in 2019. Now it becomes 11.3 in 2020. I think now we can say that we are we enter this market. Again, it's you, yeah, Madine.
Thank you. So the third question is, are there gender policy support for entrepreneurship to account for gender differences?
As we have just mentioned in the analysis and the ecosystem of entrepreneurship in Egypt, there is a gender gap. How the government of Egypt is working to close this gender gap, they have like a bunch of initiatives that has been currently launched in order to close this gender gap and increase the labor force participation for women in the labor market, and increase the microfinance, the targeted women as well. So there is the family planning family development and planning program that has been launched months ago, and it has like a big pillar, and a lot of national investment has been allocated in this kind of in this program or in this pillar about how access to microfinance for women in order to promote the entrance of women in the labor market, more entrepreneurial training and courses for women who wants to be an entrepreneur, putting into consideration having a small family that makes her release a little bit from the household chores and the home commitments that can actually hind her to enter the labor market and being an entrepreneur. Back to you, Madine.
Thank you so much. Thanks for the so insightful answer. So the first question is, what would it take for Egyptian enterprises to develop into the next unicorn?
The next what? I didn't know.
Into the next unicorn.
Yes, I think before the outbreak of the COVID-19, I was I can tell that we're going to take a long time, but actually after the outbreak of the COVID-19 um, and actually uh, the concern that the government give for youth and access to microfinance and for the women empowerment and um, and for the women empowerment and for the fintech the fintech and the platform and the importance of the platforms economy. I think and we are working hard now to make this long time shorter. I think over the next 10 years, we're going to have you're going to have Egypt better ranked when it comes to the entrepreneurship ecosystem.
Thank you. And the next question is for the initiative suspending credit score blacklist for non-regular credit clients and waiving card cases for defaulted customers. How is this helpful in the long run?
Yeah, most of those actions, it's short-term action that the government of Egypt quickly they respond to the outbreak of COVID-19 and try to mitigate the negative impact of COVID-19 on micro, small, and medium enterprises and help them not to close and decrease the layoffs. It actually it helps a lot. There is a survey that I work on with the government in order to assess how impactful this relief measures on the micro, small, and medium enterprise performance during the COVID-19 outbreak. We find that among 50% from those who know about those relief measures, 90% they reported that they benefit a lot, and this helped them not to run out of business.
Thank you. Once again, thank you so much, Dr. Rizk, for your insightful presentation. And yeah, it was really helpful. I think everyone get an information from this presentation, really insightful into information about entrepreneurship and also like how nowadays female and males in Egypt are like taking a part in entrepreneurship, not only in entrepreneurship, but also in agricultural entrepreneurship. And how the government now is like helping to small and medium businesses to continue their businesses in the new level. Thank you so much for this presentation.
Thank you, Medina, and thank you for the Social Science Lab, and thank you for my audience, and looking forward for more seminars like this in order to give more insights on what's going on in Egypt and the MENA region as whole. Thank you very much.
So on behalf of the Social Sciences Lab, just want to thank Dr. Rizk again for coming for this lecture. Your presence will greatly benefit a lot of the students and also researchers who are following us on our work, and also, of course, on our own causes. And hopefully we will have more entrepreneurship by women and also entrepreneurship by youths in different settings and also in different areas that were previously maybe less attention given to them. So thanks so much for your presence today, and thank you everyone else for your presence and for your questions. Of course, we would like to continue the engagement. So if anyone else has further questions after the presentation, because it's live stream, so there's a bit of a delay sometimes in the streaming. Feel free to drop us a note, and we'll be happy to forward it. Yeah, so that's for today, and I will now officially close our lectures chapter for today. Thanks so much, everybody.
Thank you very much.